Oh, I forgot to turn my mic up there. Let me turn off that music here. Alright. So, gonna play episode Manufacturing Happy Hour, Chris Lukey. Probably one of my favorite podcast interviewers right now. I just really like how he asks his questions and how he kind of like runs his interviews. So I haven't listened to this one yet, so it should be good. See episode 165, Unlocking the Full Potential of Frontline Operations, Lean Manufacturing and Industry 4.0 with Nathan Linder, co-founder and CEO of Tulip. Let's check it out. Make sure I get the audio all turned up here.
Thing, and another factory is building another thing, almost intrinsically connected. That is a bright, composable future we're headed towards. It's going to be tremendously impactful that companies adopt this sort of agile, composable approach.
Make sure it's still in line with me talking too.
Welcome to Manufacturing Happy Hour, where we get real about the latest trends and technologies.
I can always go back and check these audios later. First time kind of doing this. I want the audio to come loud enough through, but I'm not really sure how my mic is going to sound over for this first one.
You need to take your career.
Many deals for a friend of the Grummels, like you.
I'm going to have to turn that sound down.
Hey folks, it's episode 165. Today we're exploring how to unlock the full potential of frontline operations, lean manufacturing, Industry 4.0. That's because our guest this week is Nathan Linder, CEO and co-founder of Tulip Interfaces, the industry's leading frontline operations platform, which gives manufacturers a holistic view of quality, process cycle times, OEE, and more. We'll define what a frontline operations platform is here in just a second, but while Tulip is a relatively new company, I should say that this isn't Nathan's first game-changing venture. He also co-founded the 3D printing technology company Formlabs, where he's still the chairman. That company is still doing very well, so needless to say,
I just got some basic stuff I'm doing in this game right now anyways. Nothing that important. So I figured I'd just play this around while I listen to my podcast, catch up with them.
It's called Augmented Ops, and he does a great job of digging a little deeper than most folks do into the trends currently impacting manufacturers like digital transformation, generative AI. He actually has a term for this. He calls it buzzword bingo. You'll hear him in today's conversation also call it Gen AI bingo. But now that you've got some initial background on Nathan, here are 3 more things you can expect from this episode. First, we'll hear about Nathan's background in the early days of mobile phone development. Second, we'll learn how Nathan's focus on frontline operations has shaped his perspectives on manufacturing execution systems, lean manufacturing, and the promises of the Industry 4.0 era. We'll spend some time with all of these in today's conversation. Finally, we'll get some quick thoughts at the end as to what industries of the future might look like. As always, if you want to learn more, check out the show notes page at manufacturinghappyhour.com/165. There's a lot in this episode, and I'll be sharing some of my biggest takeaways following the interview once we get to the outro. I'd also love to hear from you as to what some of your biggest takeaways were from this episode, and maybe what you'd like to hear more of in the future, because as I said, from frontline ops to lean manufacturing, we touch on a lot of topics
like mountain runs.
Fortunately, I have a great spot to continue the conversation. You should go to manufacturinghappyhour.com/community to request to join our private user community. I've been doing my best to turn this into, let's say, a super fan group, for lack of a better word, but this is where manufacturers that are driven in their careers, the ones that really care about their businesses, the industry as a whole, this is where they're hanging out. It's a spot to connect with others in the community, ask questions, and of course discuss your learnings from these episodes. I'm in there on a regular basis in these discussions as well, so to care community to request to join future, because as I said, from frontline ops to lean manufacturing, we touch on a lot of topics today. Fortunately, I have a great spot to continue the conversation. You should go to manufacturinghappyhour.com/community to request to join our private user community. I've been doing my best to
say that. still play
turn this into, let's say, a super fan group, for lack of a better word. But this is where manufacturers that are driven in their careers, the ones that really care about their businesses and the industry as a whole, this is where they're hanging out. It's a spot to connect with others in the community, ask questions, and of course discuss your learnings from these episodes. I'm in there on a regular basis in these discussions as well, so if you'd like to join the manufacturing happy hour industry community, this is a group that is a private LinkedIn group. Go to manufacturinghappyhour.com/community. It'll take you right there. And make sure to send me a LinkedIn connection request and a message letting me know that you're trying to get into the group and you heard about it on the podcast. Anyway, hope to have you in the community. And with that, it's time to get rolling into this week's interview. And yeah, this one was actually recorded live at their offices right after a really cool tour of their Tulip Experience Center. So, let's head to Tulip HQ in Boston, Massachusetts to meet up with Natan Linder.
I don't know if I'm going to ruin it, but I think he always gives these people a question like,
Natan, you were someone I've wanted to have on Manufacturing Happy Hour for a while. I'm looking forward to this interview.
Thank you for having me.
I like this one.
I'm glad to be here.
My first question for you is, I've read that your work aims to fuse design and engineering to create novel human experiences. 25. That's a big statement. What do you mean by that?
I haven't heard that one for a while, to be honest.
Okay.
But I guess if you go back, I'm an engineer. I've been building fairly complex hardware and software type products my entire career. Think mobile phones, robots, 3D printers, all sorts of devices. And
I think there's a shortcut. I gotta figure out how to do that.
Hardware, software, and more recently, by recently I mean the past decade plus, nothing we make in hardware land is disconnected from the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I was working on, or when I'm talking about experiences,
see if I can remember how to do the shortcut.
To put it very simply, it's like, I love when people change how they work as a result of technology and an interface, and it's not always the case that there is hardware involved. I'm saying it in general, but the stuff I like typically has something to do with the physical world. Even the mobile phone, when you think about it, it used to be that all our interactions with information was, and perceiving the internet was up until some point was use this weird new thing called the browser. What is that?
Yeah.
But then there was the moment they moved to the phone, and obviously we never look back. And now it's mobile is the internet. Internet is mobile, but mobile phones used to be pretty dope.
Yeah, I think something funny is both my parents actually worked for the phone company. They're like 30 years retired, so they had like the big mobile phone boxes that you would even wear backpacks for, like back in the day, like the very first mobile phones. So it's kind of cool, like seeing the very first ones of those come out. And play again.
Not too long ago.
Right.
So it's also like it was part of my career is spending a decade trying to make mobile phones smart and useful as an interface. So that's where that is really coming from. And, the MIT Media Lab is kind of like this, in many ways to describe it, it's definitely one of the largest toy stores on the East Coast.
Okay, never heard that described that way before.
So you can build a lot of really cool interactions, and so that's really where that characterization of the work I like doing, excited doing comes from.
Well, I'm excited to dive into your interest in the physical world, your background. But first, I got to ask you a manufacturing happy hour style question. So,
okay.
Tulip is a frontline operations platform. I haven't really heard that before until I heard of Tulip. So, how do you describe what a frontline operations platform is, as if you're having a beverage with someone?
Who is that someone?
Ooh, I don't know.
Just so we calibrate.
Yeah,
it would be different, I guess.
Let's say an executive at a manufacturing company. I think that would be the persona.
Okay, so you want me to sell?
There we go.
Basically.
There we go.
The simple way to think about it is frontline operation platform is a completely new way to rethink about your industrial operations software that runs your production. In the broadest sense, it brings in a platform as a service to the people who are actually designing, building, operating production lines and operational environments. Those can be your assembly floors, machine shops, logistics centers, the lab where you do the quality, and to the people who live and work within those operations. And it gives them tools, modern tools of the times we live in. So cloud native, workflow building with no code and low code means to describe and characterize the operation and then put it into production or running it, giving you all the data that flows out of this operation into an internal analytics package such that you can continuously improve the operation.
Feathers before I kill
unlike, frontline operation platform, unlike the traditional stack where you would have very rigid definition of what is your data acquisition layer and what is the, integration to your ERP, and maybe in the middle you have a very bunch of tools. It could be legacy XYZs, where XYZ could be your MRP, MES, CMMS, all sorts of tools, like with a bunch of acronyms that
skip them like that.
supposed to give you that. Those are, I would call them typical, they're static software that are very hard to make to support what modern operation needs, which is, I'm not going to belabor the point, but I think we could agree that the world runs on data today, and the ability to make decisions on the data, and so that's what it does to the people who actually use frontline operations. And we should keep this in mind, that they're able to, we talked about changing how people work, and for us, and I think you would agree that both of us in our careers were knowledge workers. So we take making decisions based on data with great tools as a given. Why is that not the case in operations for everybody?
Yeah.
People demand that, but it's okay, well, where are the tools to actually achieve that? So that's what Frontline Operation Platform does.
And I'm optimistic we're getting closer to that. I know your company is helping people get closer to that, make that more the standard in the industry. Before we get further into talking about frontline operations, I want to hear a bit more about your background, because before you did Formlabs, before you did Tulip, you had experiences at companies like Samsung and Sun Microsystems. Tell us how those experiences influenced your perspectives around frontline operations.
Yeah, so I kind of touched on it a little bit. So back in the day, and this is like more than 20 years ago, I was in love in this technology called mobile. And I come from an embedded background, and I kind of saw what mobile phones are capable of. And they can run Java, and that was like software that could create like beautiful UIs, and they connect to the internet. And this is the dawn of the internet itself, and the dawn of internet connectivity on mobile platforms. And I was like, this is amazing. It's going to change everything we do in consumer. But I was like, I was like fascinated with the fact that this is going to change business. So I was sure this is as big as, PCs and Windows or something like that. And this is me in my 20s, and I was like pretty ambitious, and I thought that there's just a huge opportunity to do all sorts of software. And a lot of the work there back in the day, I'm talking about early 2000s, is like bringing software infrastructure to those phones to help a lot of developers create software for that kind of platform. So constrained device, low power CPU, not a lot of memory, weird interfaces with soft buttons, that used to change their functionality.
I remember that, yeah.
And all that. So that was like, wow, there's a lot of like fundamental, like how do you make a lot of developers be productive? So that kind of gets you back into, what is this no-code thing? I've been doing no-code for 25 years, It started there. And then it was a lot about, well, if that's the device, then it's going to change how organizations work, because work is going to start happening everywhere, on the go, at home. How do you connect it to business systems and things like that? So in my decade in mobile was a lot of interface work. So like what would make people quickly build software for this thing and actually repeatedly do it. And this is before the App Store and post the iPhone, so kind of lived in an interesting era.
Yeah, I'm curious then, was that you that realized this was going to fundamentally change the way we were going to work, or was that the industry as a whole that realized it? I could see it going both ways.
I think I was just one of many people of my generation that were practitioners, and I think it's much like I don't know, people nowadays don't question that. People growing up with Gen AI right now, and they're like, oh my God, this changes everything.
Yeah.
And it kind of does, and it kind of doesn't, you know, looking back, you know, because one of the examples I like, word processing completely changed.
Oh, yeah,
but it's still word processing, you know, there's the main use case is still there. So, but now, you know, we do it on the cloud and collaborative and all that. So the point is that I don't know if I knew all the things back then, or my generation knew. Certainly I'm just one of many, but you couldn't ignore it back in the day that the pace was really picking up, and like people are going to be always connected, and there's a ton of business applications to be built.
Yeah, I think a lot of people get ideas too. It's all about who actually executes
your Tulip
on them.
interfaces now. You're still the chairman for Formlabs. That's the word I was looking for. There's an office right in Milwaukee where I live. I should have had it come off the tongue a lot quicker. But how did you go from mobile to 3D printing to what you're doing now at Tulip? It feels like I'm interested to hear how Formlabs fits into that journey.
So Formlabs was born out of collaboration with the kids in my class at MIT.
Oh, okay.
When I was finishing my master's, and Tulip was also born out of my PhD work at MIT, and so they were like parallel crews, and I was like doing kind of two projects more or less at the same time. Only like this thing is that you can design as much as you can for companies, but you can't really decide like, oh, this one I'm gonna design it such it's gonna be successful so much over that period of time. So that's impossible. So, and Formlabs went through a very dramatic growth in its early years, and it went through a very successful Kickstarter campaign. It pioneered the desktop stereolithography category, and you know the connection is about, you know, we sometimes say at Tulip and other things, it's like democratizing some piece of professional work. In Formlabs' case, it's making this type of technology routinely available to people who think and create in CAD. That's democratizing that access in terms of capabilities, price, and that's what defines access. And to do that well, you need to build a piece of equipment, you need to create the right supply chain around it, so you have a lot of useful materials, you need to have great software and user experience to enable that. And so designers and engineers, whether they're in the beginning of the product development funnel or they're down on the shop floor printing just in time, you know, because they need jigs to reconfigure their production.
Yeah, it's got a little.
Again, back to the same theme. You're changing how they
work.
Over
there right now.
And so would they go back to a world that
get it
now that
again,
they have this access to this technology, they're not going to use 3D printing? That doesn't make sense to a lot of people, and that's how Formlabs grew to ship over 100,000 units of this printers.
Yeah, they threw a party at that.
This company's almost 12 years and going. Be 13 next.
They threw a party at that Formlabs place that was actually pretty dope. I think Chris was actually there too. I was at that one when they threw that. That was pretty fun. It was a couple months ago now, I think. Forgot exactly when.
September, I believe. So that was a journey, but at the same time, the moment, you know, Tulip was a big idea I had in my sort of head for a long time when I was working on at MIT and part of my research. And it's at some point there are these like non-regret moments that you have to make tough decisions, and it was definitely not an easy one back in the day. And it was a moment where I thought, you know, Formlabs is pretty stable, had a great leadership team for that moment in time and stage appropriate to the company. And the Tulip moment to be born as a company outside of a project in the making within MIT, I kind of felt it, and so it wasn't an easy decision, but it, you know, sometimes you just do that, and a lot gets figured out later, and that's sort of like the gist of it, but I kind of never left, and I'm not operating there, but I am, you know, being a chairman is, it's a bunch of time, but it's not limiting me from doing, you know, full-time building Tulip.
I totally forgot what to do in this little place.
We'll be back in a moment, but first,
it's been like a couple years since I've actually been here.
you looking for some manufacturing entertainment? Then you need to check out 3M's Clash of the Grinders Student Edition competition, which you can do today by going to manufacturinghappyhour.com/3M. This web series pits soon-to-be pros against each other in a showcase of the next generation of skilled trades talent, and it all culminates with the winner receiving a $10,000 scholarship sponsored by FANUC. Throughout the series, you'll see the competition, manufacturing trends these emerging leaders will face in their careers, and how new innovations will help them work more efficiently and sustainably. 3M is committed to skilled trades education with a goal of creating 5 million STEM and skilled trade learning experiences, and this is part of that mission. Make sure to subscribe to 3M Abrasives on YouTube so that you don't miss a single new episode of Clash of the Grinders Student Edition. Again, manufacturinghappyhour.com/3M will take you right there. And now, back to today's episode.
Well, I think this is a nice segue to the next question, because when I think of platforms in our industry, think of like IoT platforms. I think of MES systems, manufacturing execution systems.
To think about IoT platforms.
I can imagine. I can imagine why. So that's what I want to ask you next, because you're talking about, you had this passion for Tulip that was always in the back of your mind. So why was there a need for a frontline operations category then?
It's really simple. You would walk into any one of those operational environments I described earlier, and this could be in a huge multinational or a much smaller mid-market business, and the internet as you and I know it is not there, and people are working with spreadsheet papers, sticks and stones, and you keep hearing the same thing when it's like we don't have a solution. We're on year 3 of implementing the ERP. We'll get there later. So they're telling you that story on lack of adoption of technology, and always it comes to like, so and so we're here, but it doesn't exactly works what we need. We'll come back to that later. And the other thing they're saying, and the value's not there, or the price doesn't make sense. And by the way, and again in our buzzword bingo, it's like, and this is even before people knew how to pronounce Industry 4.0. We've kind of started crystallizing the thesis with Oni Kubat, that I know we spend time with now.
See if I can get it now.
We were like thinking this is nuts, and then talking to all the usual suspects and VCs and others, and everybody tells us, so and so large scale company has it all, or this global SI, they build it all. There's no reason for this company you're talking about to exist. This is before we even found the company. And I'm like, okay, great. That means we're onto something.
Yeah.
And that was the case more than a decade ago. And we're so far from done, even a decade in.
I've got a question about that a little later on. I want to ask you talk to me about composability a little bit. I saw that out on the floor, and the way I look at it is you've moved from having what were and what you call monoliths, these platforms that you couldn't do much with. It's like, this is the way it's set up. So what does composability mean in practice?
Like, it's not, by the way, we didn't coin this, but just the only person on the planet calling legacy software monoliths. It's just a good way to describe the architecture. A bunch of people, likely very smart, motivated, sat in a room, and you have to be, in software development, you have to be finite, otherwise you will never get to deliver code to anybody. Certainly that was the case before cloud software emerged, but now we're solidly in that space, so it changed how we deliver software. So software in general, our B2B enterprise, the good one, in my view, should be designed with continuous delivery. So, for example, when you delightfully log into your Google Docs or whatever other vendor you're using, you're like, oh wow, there's this new feature and it works for you, and nobody asks you if you want this, and you're like, okay, that's great. That's continuous delivery, and we take that for granted as well. And you can't do that in this old architecture that you're bound to, software in a box or software enterprise software that's being updated maybe once a year, maybe sometimes much more.
It's a good comparison.
And that doesn't doesn't make any sense because so many B2B platform tools, think Salesforce and think Workday and all these kind of large-scale platforms that support hundreds of thousands, if not millions and millions of professionals in the organizations, work with continuous delivery, and they were born on the cloud. And to think that that's not going to happen in operation is just madness from my perspective. So where composability comes into place, first of all, we have to zoom out and understand composability is also not unique just for operations. We are a tool of bringing it to operations, but you're seeing best of breed type of IT architectures composing all sorts of different, we're going to use this for our connectivity, and we're going to use that for our data lake, and we're going to use this. And that is like one level to think about composability. But when you dive into the platforms themselves, like have you ever used Salesforce before?
I have.
So if I'll give you access to our Salesforce, there's some stuff you will be able to do because it's Salesforce, and you will go into the standard interfaces and you'll find this report, that report, or whatever. But some stuff you'll have no idea unless someone takes you through. Why? Because we've composed Salesforce to fit the needs of our business. And this is back to the point I was saying before that it's heterogeneous in nature. It's like we have the same needs, but they're kind of different between different organizations, even though they're very, very similar.
You're still here now.
And, composable production system or composable MES or composable frontline operations, you name it the way you see fit, gives that power to the people who are actually designing and building production environments. And it's not a maybe one day, perhaps. It's now, and the reason this is happening, or the reason I think the need for composability is so pronounced in these environments, is because they're complex and physical and dynamic. That makes it very hard. So, like, what I mean by that, think about the transitionary workforce. How many people come in and out need to train? Think about how real physical products are being born. Engineer, from NPI, so new product introduction to engineering change management to product life cycle. So how long does a product scale ups, supply chain management. So all that is like physical stuff. That means that if both of us have the same, a production line that even builds the same product across the same company across two different sites, they might be slightly different. And to do that, you need tools that are able to deal with this kind of intensive set of differences. And then a lot of people like to talk about the IT/OT side of things.
Yep.
And that's also where it comes to play, because why does your OT need to live sort of independent of your IT architecture? It shouldn't. And why do we need to have long debates on what is the right specs, or the data model, this conundrum, what's the data model, and why can't it be defined by the people actually doing the work? Again, not to belittle the need for governance and things like that. That's not something we're neglecting in our conversations, but this ability to compose companies need that, and people who do the work need that. So that's where I think it's at the moment.
Well, I mean, if I'm looking for a theme in this conversation so far, I feel like you're taking the things you've seen in the mobile world, we see in our everyday life, and you're making manufacturing more flexible. To oversimplify it a bit.
I don't think you're oversimplifying. I think you're on the right track. One very clear vector you can think this through is software, the lens of software, and the art and craft of software engineering. And software engineers, when I started, and we talked about Sun Microsystems, I remember one of the team leads, and I'm like this super young engineer, and they bring me like this giant binder with like IEEE model of developing software, and I'm sticking it on my table. It's like, don't read this, but I got to give you this. And this is like the waterfall deluxe version. And of course, how do we develop software today? It's like agile, scrums, sprints, all these. And where is all this is coming from Lean?
Yeah.
So like software engineers and software architects stole all that, or grabbed it over to Lean, because software is very complex, and like we know that software is sort of the glue and the conduit in which like we get the data, all that kind of stuff. You know what's the problem? It's like there's not enough software engineers in the world, period. Specifically, there's not enough of them in operations.
Yeah.
To create all the software that you need to have this flexible manufacturing that you were talking about. And by the way, if you're doing software engineers are kind of, you know, they're, I don't want to, I am one, so I'm being a little bit careful. It's not really lazy. It's just, we like to be efficient.
I get you. So yeah, a good engineer is a lazy engineer. I've heard that term before. We do
automation, and we're going to use whatever we can to get by and to still get the quality and throughput and all that kind of stuff. And that means tools.
Yeah.
Where are those tools? And by the way,
is that how we get more software engineers in operations? Is more tools?
Yes.
Okay.
And here's another one. Here's another angle to think about this. If you
I'll bring another guy here.
The adoption of internet as pronounced by browsers, active, blah blah sessions.
Yeah, I think software is probably what got me into manufacturing.
Adoption, they're correlated.
Even though I'm like more of the machinist on the machine now. Share. Well, not now, but
and open source is a thing. You cannot imagine the technological landscape today without open source and open standards. So ecosystem matters.
Yeah.
And that creates velocity. Where is open source and ecosystem for operations?
Now that I know I can skip it, it should go faster.
Is what I'm looking at.
We're busy creating it with a bunch of great companies and partners, and yeah, we have a role to play, and many other people have a role to play. So all of that is what makes manufacturing flexible down the line.
The next round of our interviews coming up right after a word from our sponsor.
This guy looking crazy right now. So yeah, I'd take these guys through here. It's like you can only do it once a week on different characters, and you have a chance to get like these different, well, like mounts, like this is a mount.
275 solutioneers with unusual challenges, head scratchers others couldn't or wouldn't dare take on. Gray Solutions has done this time and time again thanks to their in-the-trenches experience and beyond-the-box applications in production. Personally, I've really gotten to know Gray Solutions over the past few years. I've seen the accolades they've received from the industry. I've gotten to know their solutioneers and their expertise in everything ranging from automation and controls to digital transformation, cybersecurity, robotics, vision, process packaging, all the way up to some significant turnkey solutions.
Episode?
But most recently, I got to know their founder and CEO, Walker Maddox, during his appearance on episode 158 of Manufacturing Happy Hour. If you want to hear for yourself how Walker has turned Gray Solutions into more than just a systems integrator, but a team of industrial trailblazers that let curiosity lead them to creative solutions and profitable outcomes for their customers, then head to manufacturinghappyhour.com/158 to tune in today. Or visit them at graysolutions.com. I'm excited to see how Gray Solutions continues to innovate and revolutionize smart manufacturing. I recommend that you see for yourself as well. And now, back to today's episode.
Alright, let's see if I can get the skip right now.
You brought up lean manufacturing. And I've heard you kind of do lightning rounds in your interviews around buzzword bingo.
Yeah.
I do, since we've got about a little less than 10 minutes left in our interview, I do want to get your quick answers on a few categories, starting with lean manufacturing. Okay. So you have a book called Augmented Lean.
Yeah.
So what was missing from lean manufacturing? Like, we know about eliminating waste, increasing productivity, that the world needed augmented lean to exist.
So nothing is missing.
Okay.
And that's why we use the word augmentation. Augmentation has a lot of, I spend my PhD is around augmented reality, and like this word augmentation, I've been thinking about it for a long time from a technological perspective. So it's about the term or the field that it defines, where lean operations or lean manufacturing, lean companies, this is from the Toyota production system onwards, as has been captured and then proliferated, was
one of the mounts you can get like looks exactly like these birds pretty much.
It was laying out great groundwork, and I don't think those principles are, and that's what we're saying in the book. They're not wrong, and they don't need, and they're not broken. Even though my conversation with Wolbach that started at some point, he told me I think lean has failed so far, which was like really interesting how he said that.
Yeah.
But the augmentation comes from the simple fact that 30 years ago, there's no internet, there's no cloud, there's no big data, there's no mobile phones, and you can't ignore the fact that these 30 years of accelerated technology adoption did not proliferate into the fundamentals of how lean works, of how you empower and you create sort of superhumans. Because like now, when you think about the augmentation, we talked about the knowledge workers. So how do you give those tools, like for lean practitioners, to have a more it's almost a more radical version of lean that gives them independence, because they're in command of the data, the creation of the data, such as their ability to make decisions that are lean driven, are just the way we're living today, where something happens and some important deal you're tracking with Salesforce.
What happens? There's only these two bosses that actually give like the mounts anyways.
Almost instantly, 10 slacks and all that kind of stuff, and it's all
glad I remember the shortcut now.
So
don't know what I did wrong that first time.
Broken in my view, but it needs
anything good.
It needs augmentation to the reality that we live in today. So
I've got 3 more questions for you, 2 related to Industry, 1 something completely different.
Okay.
You brought up Industry 4.0 earlier, and I'm curious, as far as capitalizing on digital transformation, I feel like this Industry 4.0 era has been going on for maybe a decade now or so.
Decade plus, yeah.
And I was listening to one of your podcasts on Augmented Ops when I was running around Boston Common this morning, and it sounds like we might have missed the opportunity to capitalize in there, at least in North America, where maybe Europe did a bit better job of capitalizing on it. I'm curious to hear your perspectives on it, because judging by your facial expressions, I might not be getting this right, but the main question I have is, what do we do to not miss opportunities like this in the future?
So a little bit of historical context. So like the project, like of Industry 4.0, like the European spelling. There's a lot of
IE at the end.
Yeah, IE at the end. So there's a lot of European Union work and project research and so on that went into that. And the U.S. we're just a bit more cowboys, which is like kind of implement stuff, less research, I'd say. And I think there were a lot of different names to describe different aspects of the similar phenomena, and they're all kind of insufficient and is put together potentially wrong and dangerous. So it's like you call a thing, this is Industry 4.0, and this is like industrial IoT or industrial internet, and it's like all these things are just, quite honestly, they're not the most important things.
This is the fastest way to get out. That's why you jump in.
To connect, collect data, doesn't matter how you call it, existed and has become more available and more commoditized, even for industrial settings. So we're seeing this phenomena specifically where we talked about monolith, but on the edge, there's some great edge collection, data collection technology, and it will be, as long as there are PLCs and the like. And guess what? Some of the drivers will move to cloud-based connectivity. If your network talks to the cloud and you have good failovers and you're not in high-frequency land, you might be okay with that. And if that's your operation, I wouldn't suggest you run a petrochemical plant on something like that.
Grab a different mount.
Then maybe that's okay. And and then COVID happens. I'm just giving you a little bit of different tastes of like thinking about this. And then from a very traditional, almost conservative, let's not spend money on all these kind of things, and pilot purgatory, I'm sure you heard that name.
We hear it a lot.
And like people are afraid of change. Overnight, more or less, lots of emergency product approvals, certainly in pharmaceuticals and med device, but also in other places, because you had to get trucks with whatever to the economy. It was kind of a hit with COVID, and no one's questioning the cloud anymore. Why? Because you're at home and you need to log in. It tells you how ready we are to accept that, okay, this is actually happening. And you know why this is important for companies and potentially the listeners, our customers, our partners. It's like, it's about staying competitive. So it's an imperative. It's not like, it's kind of like I'm telling you, like, look, I'm going to start this great business and my whole digital strategy, we're going to work with billboards.
Yeah.
I don't need this digital it's like the world has changed. And the earlier companies accept that and put themselves to it, the faster they will get back on the competitive track. And I think it's similar to like the way some companies were like, we have fax machines, so this email thing, let's give it a couple of years.
Sounds like what we need to do is find way, because a lot of the things you've been saying are we're learning, we're seeing cloud.
Other places that they had like probing systems and they just like refused to use them just because they didn't know how to use them, but they still like paid the money to have them. So it's ridiculous.
In our daily lives, we're seeing technology in our daily lives and we're bringing it to the factory. I'm wondering when we're going to start innovating in the factory first a little bit.
I mean, we're seeing it all the time. And like, this is what I'm trying to say. It's like, for us, it's exhibited behavior of our partners in large companies and mid-market plus companies where, you know, we're less supporting 20-person mom and pop shop. I mean, they can also use Tulip Essentials as much as they want, but that's not our core customers. Core customers are complex environments that make hard stuff. They're already doing it. And why? Because the humans on their shop floors are just like you and me. You know, we would not start our work with a clipboard with a piece of paper on it and say that's how we should do value stream mapping. We would likely fire up Miro or whatever visual tool, and then we'll tie it to a spreadsheet, and then we'll try, okay, we need to get some data from the PLC, and maybe there's because we're engineers, so we'll build something like that. That is exactly where the customers need help to put in a platform that gives them what their fellows and any other constituency, HR, marketing, whatever, already have for decades.
So I know we're at the end of our conversation here, so you got to give me 1-minute answers to each of these last questions, and one of them's a big one. What will the future or the industries of the future look like based on our conversation today?
Highly connected, very composable architectures. Yeah. That lines between the edge and cloud, IT, OT, as well as their set of use cases that they're supporting. So not just this is the system that supports the front line, and the front line will exist also sometimes in the back end, maybe in the HR department.
Oh, okay.
And,
I like that.
And highly connected means that you can have virtual value streams where one factory is building one thing and another factory is building another thing, and they're almost intrinsically connected. We're already starting to seeing that. So that is a bright, composable future we're headed towards.
I think you could have like simulated controls, to be like fully honest, like, and have a skilled person at least doing some operation remotely at places. But yeah, it's a little bit extra, but I think you could end up getting a lot of that type of work done, essentially like consulting work, and have not necessarily have to have as many people stay in one place at one time.
From the economical value of that, it's going to be tremendously impactful that companies that adopt this sort of agile, composable approach will see huge dividends in operational excellence that will translate into, you know, lower cost of poor quality, you know, higher product life cycles, you know, lower cost of training people. There's a lot of highly measurable things that we're seeing all the time. So that's the future I'm seeing.
Well, I think that's a nice summary around our conversation. The final question is, you've got quite the personality in the manufacturing and automation world. Like, you do your own podcasts, you've written a book. I feel like more people need to be doing that. So how is having Augmented Ops, your book, how has that helped you and Tulip Interfaces?
So, first of all, this is not natural to me at all.
Okay, you seem like a natural.
I don't feel like a natural.
Fair, okay.
But
practice.
But it was very clear from the beginning, and I think it's true for many great companies, is that they help to create real ecosystems. And I think we're on it, and we wanted to have different ways to bring the community together and tell the stories, and that's why we were pushing on it. Because if you look at the book, the book is saying many things, but it doesn't give you the answer. And the reason is because we don't know the full answer just yet. It's not the time to say, okay, what happens after Industry 4.0, and here is how you fix lean A, B, and C. We're more or less in a point in time where we're seeing the practitioners and the people they serve. So think about the engineers. They could be safety, lean, quality. They can be the head of factory or the executive working on the new, you know, supply chain design. we're all grappling with those issues from different aspects. So we wanted to get the word out there. We wanted a place where we can discuss and help facilitate this community. There are millions of people who self-identify as lean, quality, and operational excellence people. They built the factories. You know why factories are important? Because they're actually helping the human race survive.
Yeah, lifeblood of our economy, helping survive.
It's our economy. It's our most basic needs, and all the way to our leisure, and everything in between. And they will be there forever. And so, and I really think there is a sort of a tectonic shift in the eras right now. If you think lean has been 30 years and digital transformation has been 30 years and all that kind of stuff, and now, we're a minute before Gen AI takes over, and we're, so we have to have a community to deal with that, and that's what I'm personally dedicated to do, and through Tulip and our ecosystem want to usher.
Well, and you're part of it too. I'm trying. Here you are, trying, sharing stories, getting out there, having conversations as if you're having a drink with someone. So I appreciate all the work you're doing. Like I said, you do come off as a natural, so clearly all the work you're doing, sharing the story, is paying off. So, Natan, I just want to thank you so much for jumping on Manufacturing Happy Hour.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for visiting Tulip. It's
Absolutely.
exciting to have you.
It was a great tour, great conversation. We'll see you soon.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I totally forgot where it was now. Well, I don't know, something to look for next time. Do something different on the next one. One's over anyways.
Possible. By the way, major shout out to Ronnie Kubat, Tulip's CTO. He gave me a great interactive tour of their experience center right before this interview. If you find yourself in Boston at any point, I definitely recommend trying to pay these folks a visit. Easily could have talked quite a bit longer on these topics. If you want to hear more, definitely check out Natan's podcast, Augmented Ops, where he gets into, I'll say, pretty much every question I asked him. You can hear maybe an episode on every single one of those topics. So check it out. We didn't even get into generative AI today, and I know that's on Natan's mind, and you probably picked up on that too. So, maybe that'll make a great topic for a future part 2 of this conversation. Anyway, as promised, I'm going to share a few of my takeaways. First, I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with how Natan saw an opportunity for the B2B space when he was working in the early days of mobile, while I'm sure most everyone else was focused on how mobility was going to change the way we interacted in our daily lives. Another thing that struck me when I was listening back through this was his story about starting Tulip while still at Formlabs, specifically when he saw that Formlabs was a stable business with the right leadership team for him to be able to step away. Next takeaway, composability gives power to the people building production environments, and this is needed because production environments are complex and physical and dynamic. Great point as well about needing more software engineers in general and then in operations, and giving them more tools as a way to get there. Next takeaway number 4. I like how Natan highlighted that part of the idea for augmented lean is that when lean manufacturing came up as a production process and ideology, the internet didn't exist. So now there are more opportunities to put humans at the center of lean manufacturing as they become more enabled to improve frontline productivity. Last thing I'll say, and this is a bit of an extension of the last topic, is Natan talked about how we've been doing lean for the past 30 years, Industry 4.0 for the past 10, and now we have this new inflection point that will have a massive impact on manufacturing, but as Natan said, manufacturing is here to stay. Manufacturers that take advantage of these opportunities are going to be the ones that transform their operations, leverage data, leverage composability to optimize their unique operations to eliminate waste, increase productivity, and operate more competitively. Alright, that was a lot, but if you want to recap, head to manufacturinghappyhour.com/165 for the show notes, plus links to Natan's book, Augmented Lean, his podcast, Augmented Ops, and of course, there you can connect with Natan and Tulip interfaces as well. Final couple things I want to say. Shout out to 3M and Gray Solutions. Thank you both for sponsoring this week's episode. And if you want to be a part of conversations like this, well, hey, this is your opportunity to join the Manufacturing Happy Hour industry community. That group is set on LinkedIn, but going to manufacturinghappyhour.com/community will take you straight there. It's a private group, so request to join, and then make sure to send me a connection request, and just so I know that you heard about this by listening to the podcast. So can't wait to see you there. Can't wait to chat. In the meantime, stay innovative, stay thirsty. We'll catch you again next week. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Manufacturing Happy Hour, powered by the Industrial Network.
We knew the products were going to be the cornerstone, but we wanted it to be bigger than that. We always talk about building a brand that is Canvas, and that includes the communities. It includes artists.
All right, well, yeah, we're going to check out, see what we got for the next one. Try to come up with something different to do on here or whatever, but just kind of trying to keep something regular, maybe open up like conversations and take recommendations from people on what to hit on the next time. So yeah, plan to do these like Thursdays, maybe actually do some more real gaming on some of them too, depending on how it goes or whatever for them. But kind of just be more casual on Thursdays, kind of do like chill sessions. Gonna do like cam sessions on Wednesdays where I'm doing like software and messing with some type of CAD cam software, and then doing something on a machine or in a machine on Sundays. Try to keep pretty regular on that, but yeah, trying to keep my Thursdays as just my kind of casual chill night. See where it goes from there. Maybe turn that into like actually going out to like the bar with my laptop some nights or something like that. All right, well, till next Thursday or till Sunday if I see you guys then. See you later.